Your viewers, it's a pleasure for me to return to this show Behind the Headlines.
Good. We have Honorable Paul Mwiru. He is Jinja Municipality East MP. No, it is still Jinja East, but it will be, yes, Jinja Municipality East. It will be a city from the next parliament. Mwiru is now a member of the Alliance for National Transformation, one of the new parties in the country. Honorable Mwiru, you have been here before, but welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see you again.
Viewers.
Our panelists are all available today. Let me start with Council Katuntu, who has been missing in action, and he scared the country by saying, I have to keep off a bit, but he's back with us. The Honorable Katuntu is MP for Bugweri County.
Thank you very much, Charles, and I have missed you guys. I'm happy to be back.
Good, good, good. Good to see you in good peace. We have Mr. Ramadan Gobi. He is an economics lecturer at Makerere University Business School. He is a panelist on this show. Gobi, you're most welcome back.
Thank you, Charles.
How is Butambala?
Butambala is fantastic. It's raining.
Good. And all the way from Fort Portal City, our own, the Honorable Margaret Muhanga. She is joining us by Zoom. Honorable, how does winning an election by a very small margin feel?
I won with a very big margin, first of all.
How many?
That small margin is just a story created by a few people, but I won by a very big margin.
By how many votes?
And it feels good. About 1,023. And it's a very small constituency of 20,000 voters. So 1,000 votes more is a landslide in a contest of 30 people.
1,000 is a big margin, as we shall be discussing. We congratulate you. Let's start with, we are going to be looking at the implications of the recently held NRM primaries on the 2021 general elections. By now, you all know, from east to west, there has been a lot of violence in the primary elections, and loss of lives have been reported. We still don't know yet the precise number of lives lost. By the last check, we were told about 6 people died, and majority of those in Western Uganda, where violence was at its peak. We have some election results still being reported today. I think Kazo district was just announced today, if I'm not mistaken, and by, I think, candidate Muhesi for the women's slot, defeating the Minister for Economic Monitoring, the former PPS to the President, Molly Biamukama there. And there are a number of issues that have come through, you know, foul play, cry, and then the whole issue of the President's announcement that came a few hours to the election on Friday last week, that threw everybody, saying it threw everything into a disorganization, that everybody with who can be identified must vote. What exactly happened? We are going to be looking at that. Let me start with Honorable Anite, who participated in that election in Koboko. She lost to her colleague and a brother, Dr. Charles Ayume, and but she said, she conceded and said, I'm going to now start campaigning for my president. Honorable Anite, what exactly happened in your election, and what do you think exactly went wrong or went right with that election?
Okay, Odongtho, and viewers, I beg to remove the mask so that I can be able to communicate eloquently, because this is a bit...
If your neighbors are masked, so yeah, I think it should be okay.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much for inviting me to this program. Just to go straight to your question, I need to thank the Almighty God that Koboko, which was put on the spot and listed as one of the districts that is going to be hotspot and red zone for violence to happen. I want to thank God that that did not come to pass, even with all the media branding that it's going to be a hotspot of violence, and therefore we ashamed the devil by making sure that there was no violence in Koboko. So I want to congratulate the people of Koboko.
How did you do it so that there is no violence there? What did you do right?
What did
we could see on some television, UBC was there, a number of other television, radios across the country. It was indeed a hotspot. And exuberant, energetic youth participating, but there was no violence. How did you do it?
So after the violence that was seen by Ugandans and everyone on the 9th of September, what I did immediately after the violence, I went on ground and talked to religious leaders, talked to elders. I went on radio, talked to the youth who are being used to participate in the violence, given alcohol, given marungi, given opium, to actually burn down billboards, burn the roads, and beat women, and stone the hospital, stone my residents and my supporters' residents. I had to appeal to everyone for peace in Koboko. I told them what is important is the peace and stability that our president fought for, that we as Koboko sit 19 kilometers away from DRC, which is in war, and 3 kilometers away from South Sudan, which is in war, and no business going on there. And I had to tell them, spend all the time teaching them and telling them that we do not want to go to war, given that our neighbor is at war, and we are hosting refugee, and we host over 56,000 refugees.
Within Koboko?
Within Koboko. And so I had to really talk to them about peace and stability. And I'm very, very happy that they did listen to it. And I made sure that I restrained my camp from being offensive, that every time someone attacked them or they were insulted, they should keep quiet and just watch. And so that was how we were able to.
Did you do this and as your camp alone? And how would that be possible? Because it takes two to tango, as they say. There must be an offensive and then there must be a defensive group in order for violence to spark. So were you doing it in, concert with your opponent, Charles?
Two meetings that I organized, the religious leaders and the meeting with the elders. We invited Charles and team. They did not show up, even with the meeting of elders. But then the meeting that I organized with the security organs, Charles and the team came in the meeting. So that meeting was really to ask them to restrain themselves and not cause any violence, because clearly they had known that they had lost that election. So they were resorting to violence. So the last meeting, which took place on the eve of election, was a blessing in disguise, because that helps them to know that whatever they do, they were going to be answerable to the laws that be. And secondly, the message that the president gave through SEC during the SEC meeting about violence played a big role. Now, the population in Koboko largely supports NRM, and they strongly respect and believe in President Museveni. So what I did, I played throughout the message of peace and the president's tough message against those who will be violent in the election. So I bought airtime on radio and asked security personnel to go and talk on radio on my account, because they say the government hour was only one day, which was a day on Thursday, and it was during daytime when people were not able to listen to the radio. So I had to buy prime time for the security to go and talk about peace and stability. And I'm very happy that it worked very well.
Okay. Honorable Dombo, the election seen from the observer point of view, from any angle, was embarrassing to say the least. So many people wielding guns. Of course, we must state now that it is on record. A minister is in jail right now, awaiting prosecution. And so many such reports. And of course, needless to say again, the issue of reported 6 deaths, some in East, I think 1 or 2, and then others in the West. What exactly, where did you exactly fail as the NRM to organize this election, or even do like Honorable Anita is saying, that we can do this, meet, bring people to consensus, and have a violence-free election? Where did you people fail? What went wrong? And have you learned lessons from it?
Thank you very much, Bwana Odongtho. And I request my friend Anita to mask up so that because she has just returned from the border, you can't be sure.
I have tested.
But you are in Kampala, which is the epicenter now.
Exactly.
You can't be sure whether she crossed them.
Sitting next to him, there's Corona in the secretary.
Honorable Dombo, you are in Kampala. Kampala is the worst.
First and foremost, I want to congratulate the members of NRM that successfully went through an election. You see, when you talk about the isolated cases, it is as if the entire country there were no elections. I want to tell you that in the NRM we had very successful elections. And I want to congratulate my sister Anita. Thank you very much for simplifying our work by conceding and already mobilizing the team that supported you to come together with the winner so that we can mobilize for NRM. This, for us, it simplifies our job and it will enable us to prepare for the coming battle against other parties with ease. But, like I've said before, in any election, nobody should die. And to have any person dying, it naturally affects and demeans the entire process. Because instead of people focusing on the successful story, everybody will be emphasizing the negatives. And to us, as a party, we are not very proud about this, and we wish to apologize to the people who were hurt, who lost dear ones. On Monday, I accompanied the Secretary General of NRM, the Right Honorable Kasule Lumumba, to a place called Kapujan in the Katakwi, where an innocent woman who has supported NRM for over 30 years had come to do her civic duty, just to line up behind the candidate of her choice. And the military man recklessly mishandled the weapon and shot 3 people. And Mama Teresa died. She wasn't part of the fracas. She was very far in a line. And she was shot dead. Such incidents are not anything to be proud about. But again, some of the cases that you are counting, NRM does not have its own army or its own police. NRM as a party in Uganda.
NRM is in power.
NRM as a party in Uganda relies on security provided by government. And the security the same government provides to ANT, provides to FDC, provides for JEMA. Only that NRM is a massive party. So, in the case of Kapujan, it was purely a reckless LDU who either was ill-trained or must have been drunk. I don't know exactly what happened when you listen to the story, as it was told by the people who were at the scene. To us as a party, the Right Honorable Secretary General had to apologize to the people. He had to commiserate with them and condole them, and also make contributions to the funeral expenses. Right now, there are a number of people who are in hospital right now being taken care of by the NRM party.
How many?
And those from Teso, we evacuated from Teso were 2. And one thank His Excellency the President, who is also the chairman of the party, for providing us a helicopter to evacuate some of the injured people in order to save the lives of Ugandans.
Are some of those footages from that same place? This must be Katakwi.
Yes, the place where it was Katakwi.
Yeah.
The place where was Katakwi.
Okay.
And this was very painful. So, because of those few incidents, it really negates even the good cases or the entire positive image that we should have been talking about.
Okay.
But I want to tell you
that
where did we go wrong?
Where did you go wrong?
Let me tell you that...
Where did you have challenges?
To have a successful election, it depends on a number of things. The first one, it depends on the process. The second one, it depends on the environment.
Mm-hmm.
The third, it depends on the equipment.
Mm.
And fourth, it depends on the individuals involved. In the NRM primaries, we had cured the problem of the process.
Mm.
Because when you look at the previous elections, where I became a victim, people stuffed ballot papers, people would go to NASA and they buy ballot papers. The registrars and the election officials were literally vending the electoral materials, including the declaration forms and the ballot papers. And the mayhem that was in the country, everybody got fed up with secret ballot. There was nothing secret.
That was 2016.
That was 2016. And it was because of this.
But was 2016 worse than 2010?
And it was because of this that the NRM amended the constitution in order to enable people to line up.
Okay.
And this is a very simplified process that you wake up one day. I was the supervisor, election supervisor for Teso, deployed by the party to go and oversee the entire process and pick the stories so that we see which areas we can improve in. I was in a place called Kaikai, Katine, and other places. And the people are jubilating to say, don't take us to secret ballot again. Because by 1 o'clock, people had finished voting. They knew whom their past people they had voted. The results had been declared at the polling centers. And the people were going back home.
Okay.
So the process was okay. Now the equipment, basically, and the materials, it was just a declaration form. And to many areas, the biggest challenge now emerging in the electoral process in the NRM and the plus are the people. The individuals...
The individuals participating.
The individuals, first of all, presiding.
Those are the registrars.
The registrars.
Yes.
Who want to subvert the will of the people by just a stroke of a pen.
Would the registrars, you said the process is okay. Would the registrars subvert a process which is foolproof? Is it possible?
There is nothing that is foolproof.
Okay.
Even when God created a human being and he gave them the 10 commandments, they violated. Even when he made Adam and Eve and put them and said, don't do this, they violated. God, if they could do that to God and he couldn't have foolproof, then how can I guarantee that NRM we shall have a system that is foolproof? The only system is that there is continuous improvement and we keep learning from what has happened in the past to ensure that we make better. And now in NRM, that was one of the things. The biggest problem which I have noted, and this is something that we must begin teaching Ugandans, even in the main elections. I went for a democracy course in the United States when I was still in Parliament. In the US, for every candidate who contests, before you go for an election, you make 2 speeches. You make the victory speech, and you make the concession speech. And you make them before you have lost. That assume you have lost what would you tell your opponent who has succeeded and you draft it? Because should you draft it after you have lost, the anger of losing the elections will interfere with your mens rea, and you may fail to come up with the statement that you should come up with. In Uganda, the most unfortunate thing that whoever goes in an election prepares for one thing.
To win?
To win.
Okay.
And prepares to win irrespective of what comes.
Okay. Honorable Mwiru, you are an opposition person. You did not participate in this election, at least legally or directly.
You can't
if
be, you can't
if you participated, then you did it using underhand, you know, routes.
Mwiru participated in our SEC elections.
He will be the one to tell us. Do you think that the NRM processes in this primary elections met the best threshold or the basic threshold of a free and fair election? And in your view, what do you think could have led to their trouble?
Thank you. First, I want to, for the record, to say that I did not participate, but I was keenly following what was transpiring within the neighborhood, because it is of interest.
Yeah.
You see, as the saying goes, that you cannot give what you don't have, because if NRM, if they don't have internal democracy, then they will not give it to the country. First, I want to wish them well in their democracy, the way they perceive it, because that was their democracy. You know, when we are amending, when we are trying to create regulations in Parliament, they are an effect of enabling them practice democracy the way they understand it because of COVID. That's why we kept on, we are trying to oppose them, saying they are unconstitutional, but they went that way. The first observation was on security. I think if there's anything to pick for purposes of the 2021 general election is the impartiality the security forces tried to put up when it came to the NRM primaries. We have seen situations like in my area where security, the police, they are the perpetrators of violence, the army and the police, where they escort people, NRM candidates, distributing merchandise to the voters. At least from what I saw, they may have been excess, but I think they tried in as much as possible to know that the national, maybe because they thought they were working for their party. At least I did not see them taking the extreme. That was one. Two, an election must have a voter register. All over the world, a national voter register is a cornerstone of a free and fair election. In the middle, actually a few hours to the polling, I saw the chairman of NRM, despite the fact it was an internal matter, actually, in my view, causing confusion. Because when you read his letter, he was saying that any person present, in as long as express interest to participate and is identified, he would become a voter. Though he qualified his statement by saying that you had to register, so that you on the register. First, it is very difficult, as someone who has participated in this electoral process, that you would start registering voters on the voting day. That's why even in the national electoral process, there is that
process.
There's that process. But why that was a problem, that people took advantage. In some places, they did register. In some other places, from what I was seeing, they did not. Because like I saw some of the other forms which were flying on social media, where someone was saying he got 4,000 votes
in a village.
In a village.
With less than
yes, of course, in terms of common sense, you would even first go on the Electoral Commission register. And so many, even if the village was combining 2 polling stations, you cannot get a Electoral Commission register exceeding 1,000 people.
But that would be a legitimate reason for challenge.
Yeah, and of course I listened to my brother. Of course, I said I was following with interest. Of course, I was seeing Honorable Dombo walking at a polling station. And actually, this is what I've been doing. In my case, in Jinja, they went and falsified the results to the extent that actually everybody voted, including the dead. And that was one of the issues which was decided on by court. So, in other words, I was seeing them practicing what they have been doing. Because I saw those results on those particular polling stations. But to me, the confusion was caused by the chairman when he said people can turn up, can vote. Because in some instances, people just lined up. It was tedious for people to resign, to start registering members, and whoever was present. Then the other issue, of course, I think it also goes to us, the participants. Yeah, I saw on TV when people are being counted, then they go behind the lines are being counted. They keep on making rounds on the. And at the end of the day, this impacts on the process. The other was the falsification of results, and some of them were doing it with a lot of amateurism. I saw like the Kayunga, they would alter the candidates, but they forget to change the total. So even when the other forms were being presented, now the total was the original total which was on the form. Of course, I looked at it, and but to me, this comes with the despondency. That I wonder whether someone who wants to represent his area, why you must desperate so much get into all these things in order to emerge, to represent the people, unless you're just imposing yourself on the people. Then the other issue, I think, which we need to work on, like to me, the question of violence, like I've participated in this election, like I think like in my team, the first thing we have to discuss, we know that we cannot both go through. To me, this is a fact which we have to start with. Then say, okay, what are the options? One of the options is to concede in case I've lost. The other is to celebrate. But the cause of the violence is the people who have wanted to manipulate the process. You understand? Because, like for instance, if I lost, I would have no problem. That would be the verdict of the people. But what we are seeing in all these processes, there are manipulations. And there is connivance between the electoral officials, the security organs, and at times they even reach a level of trying to compromise your agents. Of course, I know we have agents because they cheat. And I think if we are to squarely look into the problem of violence, then we must come up stringently, to come up with stringent punishment for the electoral officials. Because if someone knows, like I have an amendment which I proposed, which is actually before Parliament, where we should dispose of election petitions before some MPs are sworn in another term. Because if someone knows that even if I engage into violent activities, at the end of the day, the patient will be determined before I'm sworn in. People may read it's an exercise in futility, and they may not go to that extent.
Everybody might petition.
Yeah, but at least you see,
like there were about, were they 178? About 178 petitions, yes, in the last parliamentary elections.
Yes, but you see,
or even more,
because you see, the electoral process is supposed to determine a leader in an area, and it is only fair that someone who has won is declared. The falsification, which, because like if you looked at most of the election petitions, they involved the falsification of results. And the electoral commission officials were involved.
Okay.
So to me, by and large, I would say, yes, I want to congratulate the NRM on their democracy, the way they understand it, because they're doing it the way they understand it. But I only think we need to improve it.
I need, Honorable Bonite, before I come to these panelists, Honorable Miro has cited something very important. The issue, he refers to it as causing confusion. The message of, the last minute message of your chairperson, of your chairman, who is also President Museveni, to what extent did it affect you? To what extent did it affect the results of some of your participants, in your view?
Thank you. I was going to, if you didn't call me out, I was still going to challenge what Honorable Miru is referring to as confusion set by the chairman. Yes, to some extent it did cause a big problem, but that was not the intention of the chairman of the party. The chairman came in and wrote this letter to cure a problem.
Which he did.
Which he, unfortunately, in his mind, he had addressed the problem, but he didn't cure it. This was a problem caused by the secretariats, because the party
These are
chairman,
the registrars?
not the registrars.
Who are the secretaries?
The Secretary General and the team.
Ah, okay. The
And-
secretariat.
Yeah, the secretariat. Because the party chairman gave them the mandate to come up with a voters register.
Yes.
But what did they do? They went out there and announced to the whole world that they had registered 11,000 voters.
11 million.
11 million
Yeah.
voters. But then they did not sieve out the dead people. They did not bring the register out to the NRM party members in time. They deleted some party members. And there was a lot of discomfort among the party members that so many party members were left out. Plus, so many dead people appearing on the voters register, just like
Even by Friday when voting was going on.
Exactly. So, just like Honorable Miru said, dead people remaining there and someone taking on the name of the dead person. So the party chairman, they all came to respond to see how he could cure a problem. But the problem that he tried to cure was just escalated by the interpretation of what the party chairman communicated. Now, the party chairman's letter was very clear. He says that only the people within the village above the age of 18 who are NRM should be the one to participate in this election. And in his communication, he communicates to the grassroots, the 5 committee members.
The village.
In the village.
Yeah.
Now, the secretariat has never met these people in the village. Okay? Now, these village people, these 5 committee members,
Yeah.
some of them do not even know that they hold those positions. First, you've never met them. Second, the election happened in the last general election. Before the last general election, before the 2016 election, that was when we elected those village structures. So you've never called them for a meeting. They've never known that they're important until this day. You tell them, actually on the day of voting, you should be able to verify. Now, I moved very fast as a mobilizer because I've been holding them together. And I don't think the same thing happens in all the constituencies where we have NRM members of parliament, that you hold the structure from village up to the district level or up to the municipal level in my case.
Okay.
Now, when the party chairman's letter arrived at the eve of election, that came on the 2nd. Now, you should know that there are challenges within the party. Honorable Dombo said NRM is a mass party. So anything that is mass is bound to face challenges. Now, the party chairman felt let down by the secretariat for not organizing a proper register. And therefore, he had to come in quickly, use his powers, which the Constitution gave him,
Yeah.
and he actually quoted the powers that gave...
Yeah.
That,
Article 14, I think,
Yes.
of the NRM's constitution.
now, the first reaction when I got the party chairman's letter was, wait a minute. Now, this has come at the eve of election. We're going to have a problem. What do we do? Educate this party, the 5. Educate them. Now, get the LC1.
In one day.
In one day, and I had to do it. Get the LC1. I got the LC1. Tell them, look here. In most cases, the LC1 is actually the chairman of out of the 5, for the 5 village committees.
Yeah.
I told them, you see, the chairman's letter is here and it gives you the mandate. Have you seen the letter?
Yeah.
So we're just seeing it now. And they protested and said, we don't think that this is the right thing to do because we are going to be infiltrated. Then I told them, okay, fine. He is the chairman. He's told you, cited the Constitution where the power has been given. Do your work.
And you are a participant in the election.
I am a participant and I'm a party member, and I am moving with the NRM chairman of the municipality. The district chairman NRM is with me. The division chairman of NRM are with me. I have the entire NRM machinery with me. But then what happens on the voting day? On the voting day, if we had followed exactly what the party chairman had communicated, we are not going to have such scenarios. But because we, the ordinary people, abused what the party chairman had communicated, rightly, then we saw people who are FDC, in my case, and I don't want to zero down to Koboko, because this happened every other place.
Just say in your case first.
So in my case, in my case, non-FDC members, actually my village people, that village committee that was meant to do the work, they did a thorough job. They went ahead, even when they were forced, they were overpowered, that they went and voted. They saw those FDC people, noted their names down, and said so and so, so and so, so and so is a non-FDC, and voted. In some cases, they resisted those non-voters who were ferried from Arua, coming in with people power, tying their head, and coming in the line, and they said, these are non-residents. When they said that, because of their violence, they burnt down the houses. They burned down the LC1 chairman of Gaga Cell, they burned down his house just because he resisted. In Nyarelo Cell, the LC1, for resisting that these are not residents, like someone said, either Honorable Dombo or Honorable Miru said, in a village where you know that the residents have to be, the households are only 25, 250. And the total number of people, they will tell you they are like 1,000 or they're like 4,000. Now, he says, I know my residents. The residents in this village are only 600 people. Now, I am seeing thousands of people. Where are they coming from? When he tries to resist, they beat him up.
Attacked him.
And then they took him to prison.
Charles,
I needed to, yes, Honorable Dombo.
Charles, let me give some information. Before that, you see the chairman's letter, you understand? It was bringing to an activity of registration. And registration must go with display. Because if the chairman allowed the process to go on the way it's supposed to be, because before there was a display, that's because the object.
But you see, the display only happened 3 days.
I wanted to bring in the panelists, but Dombo seems to be itched by the touch on
Mr. Odongtho.
Secretariat. Yes, Honorable, go for
I
it.
want to tell you that the problem the president's letter was curing was not that one. It was not the problem of update.
Wasn't it the problem
in
of
aligning,
some people not on the register?
In a lining system, dead bodies don't line. Because they are dead. But let me first of all explain what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because even if you had dead bodies or dead people in the register, when you are going to line, you count people who are alive and they are lining behind somebody. So that wouldn't be a problem. What the problem was, the candidates who were contesting the respective constituencies wanted to use the register.
And use the dead bodies.
Not for elections, but use it for selection. You do get to a village which has 300 people, and the register has registered 100. If those people came to a village to vote, and the 200 are watching, the 100 determining their course of action, would there have been an election?
No.
That is the cure the chairman was trying to cure.
But I thought, and you can correct me, so, what Honorable Anita is saying, that one, there was a problem of not having an updated register, which is your role as secretary. Just a minute, Honorable Dombo. And that when the chairman of the party realized just a few hours to the election day that there was no proper register, and there were complaints from party members that how can we not vote in a primary election of a main election, a main party coming. Then the chairman and his team, I think SEC, met that day and decided that let the village committee members identify the members of the party as they know them from the village, and they should be allowed to vote, and which is what caused problem. I thought that is what...
Mr. Odongtho, what happened is this.
Yeah.
We have a register in NRM, but it is a manual register. In the books, the yellow books.
Which register? Just a minute.
Let me
I spoke to a candidate of Kavale municipality yesterday, NRM, and he said in their case, these manual registers, yes, existed, but when they were sent to Kampala from Kavale, and Kavale can mean all other places, including Koboko, that some of them were stolen along the way, some of them got lost along the way, some of them were stolen from the secretariat, some of them were eaten by termites, in order to ensure then there is no register. Isn't that what happened?
That is true. Let me tell you that we have a register.
Yeah.
And when they went to do the update, the initial update, they did an update in a duplicate. When we were going for the special interest group elections, we handed over this register to the Electoral Commission to go and conduct the special interest group elections, which they did. The copy which remained with the NRM Secretariat right now is being digitized, so that you can have a digital register which you can be updated.
Okay.
But all these are functions of money.
So you lacked money?
It is a function of money, and in order to do a digitalization process to complete and verify the register, require the funds, which are perhaps progressively, the funds have been released, and right now the digitization is taking place. But
when were the funds released?
It is a massive.
When were the funds released?
It is a massive process.
Honorable Dombo, when were the funds released to the Secretariat?
The Secretariat is doing the digitization right now.
When were the funds released?
The same period when the digitization is taking place. So, because of that, a decision was taken by the Central Executive Committee that in order to have the elections, because one, the NRM elections were brought forward.
Yeah, true.
From the
10th to the 4th.
To the 4th.
Yes.
In order to
we are also going to discuss that and see where.
In order to remedy certain things. Now, because of that, it would not coincide with the digitization process to be complete, and the decision was taken that let us use the register which we used during the special interest groups.
Okay,
now,
thank you.
That is the register.
Let me bring in
That's the register which had been compromised by all candidates.
I want every member to have a say, because this is the only topic we are handling, and we are going to look at all those limbs of challenges and see how, to what extent they affect the main national election, and to what extent NRM maybe failed or succeeded in giving the country a lesson, so that we may have an election for the country which is not violent, which is free and fair to an extent. Let me bring in Honorable Katuntu at this point. You have listened carefully. You are another person I expect not to have participated in the election, so probably you had a better iBud's view of this election.
You can't be sure. He participates in caucus.
From your perspective, what exactly happened in this election? Were the things that happened inevitable in your view as a senior politician, and especially as a lawyer? Do you think that some of these things can be remedied, 6 months to a general election?
I don't know.
You start from you can even start from what you had from them.
Emmanuel is my friend, and Anita is my friend. I like both of them. Posturing does not sort out the problem.
Who is posturing?
We may try to look for some reasons to explain the problem, but then the problem will be there. First of all, it is not about money. It's about bad manners. And I have been pleasantly surprised if whatever they are complaining about didn't take place. Charles, in an election, the source of a successful election is the register, first of all. Because one, the candidates have an opportunity to know who is going to vote. In just a few hours to an election, if you are just faced with an anonymous, voting college, then you're in trouble. Big trouble, and that's what happened. And I'm sure all losers in this election are pointing to that effect, including my sister here, Anita. So you can't justify it. There is no election without a credible register. Nothing. How do you identify somebody who is eligible to vote or not? That's why the Honorable Anita is talking about people from FDC, people from People Power, people independents, and so on. Then you talk about some other group who also have partisan interest. Because if you are talking about a certain committee to identify who is going to vote or not, you leave it to their whims. So and so, no, that one we don't want. Even if he's a member, they will say that one don't vote. Then you cause a circus. If they are to do themselves a favor, first acknowledge. And you know, this issue of the register is always coming up. You remember the famous story about Nina Mbabazi and the register?
The yellow register.
Yes.
Is that the one of 2011?
2016. 2016. And many of those people who are not happy with the Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi as Secretary General, the crime they were choosing them of, and my sister was one of them, I think, Anita, was that they did have a credible register, or the register has disappeared. And now, 5 years down the road, they are faced with even a worse situation. And I'm sure when the Right Honorable Mama Mbabazi was looking at this comedy, he was smiling, saying, okay, I was the problem, I left, the problem is even worse than when I was there. So everything that can go wrong in an election indeed went wrong. One, you had no register. So you didn't know who was supposed to vote and who was supposed to vote or not. Two, John Odongtho talks about isolated incidents. Can he be honest to us and tell us how many petitions he has, whether they are also isolated? As of now, I can tell you they are in their hundreds. They are hundreds, meaning actually it is not isolated. Literally every constituency has a petition, literally. Yes, I never participated.
But you keenly observed.
But I keenly observed. And one of my observations...
You could have carried the voters.
to disorganize someone you don't want.
No. I just keenly observed. One, you had the problem of who to vote, non-eligible voters voting. Underage, even people who didn't belong to the NRM party, they voted. Depending on who had control over that polling station. Yeah. They did vote. Two, there were falsification of results. All over the place. All over the place. When you look at those DRA forms of theirs, the whole thing is laughable. In some incidents, some candidates, because of impunity, they even grabbed the laptops of returning officers. There are incidents like that. In other incidents, they grabbed those who were in charge of sub-counties are called what? Are they registrars?
The registrars.
Yeah.
Are they the registrars?
When they are now remitting the DRA forms.
District election officials. Or
yes.
registrars.
Or registrars. They grab them. And by the time you reach the polling set, the set of DRA forms has been replaced. So really there is nothing to be proud of the election, except the symbolic one that actually there had been competition.
But
yes.
Odongtho, let me just give some information there.
I will take the information.
Odongtho, that is the issue I was addressing right from the beginning. That if you have people with that mentality, even when you have a right to register, somebody who is going to alter the declaration form, of what value would the register be? So the human being, that is an issue, the criminal conduct within the human beings. It is something that must be dealt with and dealt with harshly.
I think for the sake of the viewer, I think Honorable Dombo, I'm going to allow Honorable Katuntu to come back to you on that. But regulations, rules, laws are made and processes are put in place, well knowing that individuals are inherently selfish and they will want to benefit from a mistake or a gap. So the issue that Honorable Katuntu might be asking of you is, as a secretariat, first admit that we didn't have a credible voters register for the party, which then gave a loophole for selfish, potentially selfish participants or, you know, candidates to take advantage of. That you cannot run away from, can you?
That is self-explanatory.
So, good.
I need not.
But it doesn't rule out the other criminal conduct.
We agree. That one we agree on.
But you see, bad-mannered people will always be there in society. But what society does is to put an infrastructure to sort out the bad manners of its members, including a credible register. Then two, you see, if you have given the role of election management to an electoral commission, for heaven's sake, let them carry their own baby. But I have read that article the president quotes, or your chairman quotes, whether
from
he has...
from the letter or the constitution?
From his letter?
From the constitution.
Okay.
Your constitution is pure, I mean, they are the same anyway. I think he was quoting the article from the constitution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you see, if any authority outside the electoral commission usurps the powers, the roles of the electoral commission, then that is a problem. That's why eventually even others, for example, the chairpersons of the movements in the districts or even at constituency level, they also had a role to play. And in most cases, they were also participants in the processes. So if you are, and Honorable Anita just said it, she organized a meeting where she had the chairman of the movement and so on, blah, blah, and they are now also taking over management role within the electoral process. And many of them were partisan. You can't do that.
It was part of the guidelines, by the way.
It was, you can't do that. So, yes, what you show the country is that actually you need to compete internally. Yes, that you show the country, which is good. Your competition, according to my brother Mwiru, is democracy as you understand it. Actually, he was just being polite. It is a strange democracy. What you were proud.
Democracy by lining up.
So even that lining up, you remember that during the National Resistance Council
She wants to give you information. Are you giving?
Yes, I always give way.
Thank you, Senior Katuntu, Honorable, for allowing me to give the information. The information I wanted to give is that the democracy became strange because Honorable Miru and the team came and invaded our democracy. They participated.
Who
so
invited
they made it,
them?
They invited themselves.
No, it is your chairman who invited them. It is your chairman who invited them.
You were invited.
The chairperson invited because at that time they had no role to raise a finger to do display of a register. Yeah. Because why? Because you see, like, if even their constitution.
But did you go with?
No. Of course, I didn't participate. but the point I'm making, when you look at the electoral laws, you register where you originate from or where you reside.
Yes. And
if someone is floating that rule, one would object at a level of display. By someone registering on the same day, there will be no opportunity for someone to object. That's why I told them.
But Honorable Mwiru, you see, as I conclude, I get off the microphone. Let me tell you one thing. If I turned up and I said, yes, the Honorable Katuntu, we know you FDC the other day, these days you say you're independent, then I said a week ago, I am movement. Will you turn me away?
You
or
can't.
No? Will you turn me away or not?
By showing up, that means
I have showed up and I say yes, I am movement. Will you turn me away?
Many were turned away.
But many voted also.
Yeah.
Outside the majority did.
It's very hard clearly to turn them away because if you have confessed to NRM.
Good service by creating a situation where there was confusion onto eligibility of voters.
Good. Mr. Ramadan, I'm Gobi. I need you to weigh in here as probably the only apolitical person here. Honorable Margaret is waiting on the line,
He
but
he didn't turn up also.
But
You didn't
but
give
she is
the
also
president his
a member of the political game going on. Honorable, I mean Mr. Gobi, do you think that this that we saw of NRM is this that we saw of NRM? It's a way of managing. Dombo referred to the process being fine, environment being fine, the equipment and individuals maybe were the issues, where there were challenges, but that the rest were fine. What's your view about that?
Thank you, Charles. I've been taking a lot of notes as the politicians were talking, and I'm going to now to say whatever I've taken note of as I tick, because they have spoken a lot. Number one, I think chaos in the primary elections of NRM has been like a norm. It's for us who are mathematicians, we call it LCM.
Lowest common
multiple. Since 2006, I've been observing these elections of NRM, internal, and also the national. In every single year, there has been chaos in the primaries.
Has it been increasing, or
it's actually been
at the same level?
The curve has been going up. 2006 had the lowest level of violence and chaos, partly because most of the people then, especially those who would cause a lot of chaos, passed through the primaries unopposed. Right from the most powerful ones. The Speaker of Parliament then, Honorable Sekandi, was unopposed. His deputy Kadaga was unopposed. Honorable Mama Mbabazi was unopposed. Crispus Chionga unopposed. The First Lady unopposed, and so on and so forth. They left only the small fish to compete, and the chaos was a bit lower because the stakes were not so high. When you look at the reasons why there is usually chaos in the NRM elections, and the good thing the politicians have already discussed, is because they do not usually fulfill the elements of an election cycle or election management, as you've been discussing it, and I think Honorable Katut has summarized it quite well. Number one, for an election to take place and qualify to be election, there must be rules of the game. First and foremost, the rules of the game have to be clear, so that you don't depend on the goodness of man, whom the Honorable the spokesman is talking about. You can't rely on goodness of man. You need rules in place, because man, by nature, we are criminals. It's only when you know the repercussions of what you're going to do that you will try to resist from going there. Number two is the register, the registration exercise. Like the two have emphasized, when you don't have a register, you don't have election. Number three, the nomination process, then the campaigns, then the polling, and then the counting and the declaration, which you has talked about. When you don't manage that element, falsification will come in and all other things. And then lastly, post-election management. Now, tell me, of those 7 elements of an election cycle, which one has ever been handled in such a manner that they could really satisfy the desires of, any other democratic process? I don't see them. So I think that, like some wise people say, organized greed defeats disorganized democracy. Whenever you have a disorganized electoral process, then an organized greed will defeat it. And that's what we have been seeing. Why organized greed? Because the stakes are so high in NRM primary elections. Like we discussed here last week, most of the members who were declared winners of these primaries, they are more or less now in parliament. About 60 or so %, they are going to sail through the general election. So the highest bit of stakes, they are here in the primaries, and yet it is handled poorer than the general elections. I think even the NRM primaries these days, because of its dominance, should actually have stronger ways of managing the process than even the general one, because the stakes are so high. Why the stakes are so high? Of course, they invest a lot of money, the candidates. I've never seen the money like you see in the NRM primaries, a lot of money. In some of these, even we have seen videos where they were giving the money out openly in the lines. As people are lining, someone is distributing money.
That was criminal.
You know? Well, I know. Then it just gives you the picture. What happens then behind the scenes? How much was invested? Then to the power, of course. Most of the people who participate in the primaries are powerful people of NRM. And when you lose the primary, you have lost the power by extension, because you are not likely to be in parliament, and now you rely on the mercy of the president either to reappoint you as a minister or so on. That's why some ministers were grabbing guns.
So in other words, this was a fight largely for powerful positions, powerful placements, not just a democratic process of electing leaders.
What is democracy and power? What's the difference? Democracy is the process through which power
I don't see too much difference.
Is gotten. So these people were fighting for the power. And lastly, for me, because of this process which was not well managed, where the dead people swapped positions with the living in the voting, like the NRM people have testified.
Or some living people took positions of the dead.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the correct way of saying it.
They can't vote in lining.
No, what I mean in the register.
I know what you, I know.
We are saying people were swapping positions, the dead ones and the other ones. So when you have such a register,
Honorable Katutu, you want to add
and you are going to line
I
up.
wanted to remind my brother Emmanuel that actually we even have ghosts who vote.
Not in the line.
Their representatives lined up.
There is no spoiled ballot underlining up, because you just see people there and you count them.
But some people were crossing.
But we saw,
from online
we saw DRF forms being crossed and then one added this side and...
Now that is fraud.
And they forget to change
the children are the invalid vote.
So I think it's time NRM really organized itself at the level of primaries, because that's where the democracy of this country is being lost.
Okay.
In a way that over years, cumulatively, they have been messing up with the process, and as a result of that, violence has been also cumulatively rising. It will reach a time when it claims some of the current beneficiaries of that violence, in my view.
Yeah, but just one second, we might lose out this point. You see, this was like a rehearsal for the general elections. This was what we call a family competition. If you can have this level of violence, this level of bad manners within the family, what happens if you are now competing with the strangers? The level of violence is going to be high. The level of cheating is going to be high. So I think the country should brace itself for worse 2021. And unfortunately, many colleagues in the NRM then will either be silent about it or they will be justifying it. And
no,
that will be very unfortunate.
But there's one thing which Honorable Katonto and my colleagues should know, that unlike in the party primaries, the resources that are put before at the discretion of the Electoral Commission are not commensurate to the resources that are put to the national. Because in the national, if you listened attentively to the national chairperson and the president of Uganda yesterday, the other day when he visited the NRM headquarters, he said we are using digitalized processes because us as NRM, we could not use the digital equipment to detect who the voters are to show multiple voting. The Independent Electoral Commission is investing in that. Two, the Independent Electoral Commission has a credible register and credible personnel paid well to manage the process, which unfortunately many parties, including NRM, we don't have that type of resource.
Okay.
Then the other one is also the level of civic education. Once we invest in civic education, which the Electoral Commission is mandated to do, then we should be able to cure this. Then finally, if government can given what has happened in the primaries, should enhance the deployment of security to ensure that it creates a good environment to enable people to vote without fear. Once those are done, there will be a very marked difference between what will happen in the Independent Electoral Commission and what has happened in the NRM primaries.
Okay, we will be coming back to some of those issues, but Honorable Margaret Muhanga is waiting on the wings, but there is a credible source telling me from the NRM Secretariat that we have received petitions from candidates in 200 constituencies. That's the information I'm getting, and just so we know, that's the magnitude of the displeasure.
You would have said so far.
So far.
Actually, by this evening, we had the 205.
205. Good. Honorable Margaret is laughing. Honorable Margaret Muhanga, I don't know whether you are laughing because you are still in celebration. I don't know whether you are laughing because of the revelations coming through, but I need to bring you on before we start before we go for the break. We're going to have only one break today because the issues being discussed, we need not to forget any of them. So immediately after you, we shall have a break. But tell me, Honorable Margaret Muhanga, Honorable Anita talked about a number of non-NRM members voting. Honorable Dombo, your director for communication at the Secretariat, says that the process was fine, but the participants, those like you, were the problem, but that otherwise the process was actually fine, and and the entire process should have not had a problem. What did you see? What did you observe from your city in Fort Portal?
Actually, for me, what I observed, Charles, is that this election was bad. I do not know how to really describe it, because the change of heart by the SEC to allow anybody to vote, whether or not they were in the register, was the most tragic decision that caused all the chaos you could see. I have never seen where people have died in an election, moreover a primary election of NRM, as much as it has happened now. I understand 3 registrars were beaten and killed.
Where?
Anybody would have beaten these registrars. It was very bad for SEC to take a decision at the last hour. People had campaigned, they knew the voters. Those who wanted to vote, why did they go in the register? We are going to go for the national elections. Anybody outside the register will not vote. And so be it. But changing immediately and bringing new rules caused a lot of mayhem across the country. Now, for instance, like the Honorable Dombo said, the NRM does not have a permanent electoral commission. They handpick people. You have handpicked people to come and run an election. They have never participated in anything. Some of them are just vendors. Others are school dropouts. And you bring such people to run an election for a mass party. They cannot do anything. Let me give you an example of something that shocked me. In one of the polling stations, I had a very long queue. The lady who was the registrar in that place said the people were too many. She couldn't count them because it was threatening to rain. So I lost that polling station. Just because this lady, I don't know, she wasn't swift or she was lousy or she didn't even know what to do. How can you cancel an election just because it's threatening to rain? Even when people told her, but for us, we are here and we do not care about the rain. Please count us. She refused. And that polling station was annulled. Nothing happened in that polling station. So such tragic incidences are the ones that cause people to run as independents. Had she counted those people that she said are too many and it's threatening to rain, by the time she counts my line, it will be raining. Really? What are the implications of her decision, for example? Now, some places which are near town, the people of town woke up, went to the polling stations, voted. Now, some of the polling stations near town, people ran to these polling stations and lined up because they had said everybody with the voters' a national ID can vote. They are not residents. The chairpersons, LC ones, rejected them, but people were ferrying them to these polling stations, lining up. So this meant that the person who had more organization, more people organized to bring characters to vote without being in the register, had to get a lot of votes. Actually, my opponents wouldn't have got any votes at all because the block of votes one of my opponents got were in just one place, which is near town and his home. That gave him an advantage because you could get anybody from town, push them into the line, and they count, and off you go. The registrars need to be, even if they are not permanent, but they need to be trained a little. You can't just handpick somebody that come and carry out an election in some village. It was so bad. I saw Honorable Anite talking about people being ferried from South Sudan, which is 19 kilometers away from her home or her polling stations.
He hasn't said that.
That could happen.
I did say
because, first of all, if you have a register, you must stick to it. Because I think some of these people, we need lawyers now to take this NRM Electoral Commission to court. How do you make a decision, a hasty decision, and make everybody's life? We had campaigned, we knew the voters, we knew who the people to go to, and immediately you introduce new people. That was very bad, and I hope nobody will repeat that. Because when the NRM was making this register, these people were in the villages. They were even complaining, why is NRM writing us our names? Let them give us money. You know how people now want money for everything. They didn't go to register themselves. Now the day of voting came when they were not in the register, and they started complaining because they didn't take part in the registration. Why the National Electoral Commission will always have people is that now you cannot open a bank account without a national ID. There are many things you can't do. You can't be on a government payroll without a national ID. So a lot of people register with the national ID, and then their names are automatically sent to the Independent Electoral Commission. That saves them a lot. And the Independent Electoral Commission has got permanent staff who are well paid to maintain the register. They've got computers at every polling station. As people were just writing names, that's why you are seeing children on social media. I'm seeing children lining up and voting. Here I have a video of a place where kids were voting, 15-year-old, 12. let me tell you, the next time NRM is organizing an election, we were all happy when they said we should line up because vote stuffing was too much. People would pick these votes earlier. Lorries were stopped on the road and people were picking votes a lot earlier and writing their names and keeping for stuffing in different polling stations. So we said once we remove all these hurdles, a person will come, line up, and the ballot is the person. There is no room for you to forge that they got 200 votes, yet people were counted and they were there physically. If you had a long line, then you really have the people. If you have a shorter line, you didn't have the people. But you see, for you to create this, and everybody is ready to go into polls, and things change in 2 days, we need to organize better. Anybody without shouldn't vote unless they are in the register, because this is challengeable, I guess. It's challengeable in court that anyone can come at the station and vote. There were onlookers, passers-by, people who have never belonged to the NRM. There was no time in between for the chairpersons of NRM or chairperson LC1 to take a decision that this one is our member of NRM and this one is not our member. This is an election that was happening immediately. So where was the time for these chairpersons to decide that this is a member of the NRM and the other one is not? That time was not there, and we really had tragic incidents. I regret. I feel so sorry for the families that lost their people. And you can see the chaos was much more than has ever happened. It's just because of one decision that was taken abruptly. Nonetheless, I think the NRM elections give a representative picture. Because even if you are ferrying people, you won't ferry more than 10% of all the voters. Even if the onlookers came and voted, they will not be more than 10% of the people who are in the register.
That's true.
So very few places had that flood of people coming from nowhere. Still, one of the things we must stick to are the rules. If we have no rules that govern this election, that today we are voting in village A, B, C, D, and we are not creating new registers at the polling station, the elections would be okay. People who are very well organized, when they had that announcement, they got their people and said, come and vote. Please, this is my constituency. They would even ferry them from another constituency and tell them, there, if you don't have an attachment with that guy, please come to my area and vote. Let me tell you, Charles, I have been reading on social media and reading even on mainstream media about what happened across the country. It is really regrettable. What happened in Isinjiro, what happened in Ntungamo. I think also as the political actors, we take politics as a do or die. And some people enter these elections without having the other thought. I may win, I may lose. Somebody comes thinking they are going to win, they sell their property, and when they lose, they actually lose their mind as well. So they resort to any desperate measures to win an election.
Hey, big one.
Now, any election, I keep telling people who have never contested, because they get very excited. I am going to win this election, even when they don't know that people's characters are different. There is deception. People can come and clap for you, and on that polling station you get 10 votes the next day. So it's that excitement of people who have never run an election. I keep telling people, there's a place I went to, people walked with me, we danced, they carried placards and what? We went through 3 villages. The day of election I got 10 votes. And I said, all those people I walked with, they were like 200 singing and dancing. Where did they go? I won that election, but not in that specific place. So people who are running for the first time do not know that there is a lot of deception in these elections. People can come, clap, carry you on the shoulders. There is a place where my opponent went and they carried him. I got 107 votes, he got 21. Where did the people who carried him go? They were carrying him and singing. I am telling you, and where people never sang even one song is where you end up winning. So we need really to sharpen our minds, brace ourselves to any outcome, and wait. The rest is history. Because the moment you enter an election, you are 10 people, 5 people, there is only one person who will win. You won't all win.
Okay.
These catastrophes we have been seeing must be cured by only one thing: keeping the rules of the game.
Okay.
Keeping the rules that we are going to line up. Imagine people were lining up and they were being counted, and somebody would stop and say, I'm tired of counting, this line is too much. He leaves about 30 people. Those are the electoral officials we had in NRM. I really feel very sorry for those who lost through that kind of arrangement. I am tired of counting. How can you get tired? Why did you come to do? Why did you accept the job as a registrar? You should have refused it. Reject the job. Nobody's going to force it down your throat. Go and do other things. But you have accepted it, and then you are making people lose and causing all this chaos that is across the country. Some places have not voted up to today. Others, people are still solving problems. Others are healing wounds. We need to sit as NRM and do something.
Okay.
Otherwise, the election gives a representative picture, I guess, and I'm sure 90.9% of those who always get the flag normally win. In very few circumstances where the people lose, but that is in Kampala, in places around the north and around Buganda region. But mostly people who get a flag in Western Uganda, 99.9% win. And that's why you see them hustle and haggle to get this flag and nothing else.
Okay.
But it's just that they take it.
Honorable Margaret, we shall come back to you to ask you what if among the rules that you propose to be followed to as a solution includes putting in place a proper register and all that kind of thing, and we hope that that can lead to a violent-free election. Let's go. We are going for a break right now, but I want just to say that if you are watching this program, you can follow us on UBC TV, that's on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter through at UBC Uganda, that's on Twitter. We are also live on Magic 100 FM. But you can also follow our hashtag the hashtag is UBC behind the headlines. UBC, hashtag UBC in caps, and then behind the headlines. B for behind is in caps, and then for the T is in caps, and the headlines H is in caps. We are going for a break right now. We are taking only one break today. When we come back, because this is a very broad discussion topic, when we come back, we will delve into looking for solutions, because the most important is the lessons that we have learned, and whether or not the the main electoral commission of Justice Byabakama can have a better, a more credible election come 21 next year, arising out of this. The NRM confirmed, and the Honorable Dombo can confirm again, that from their records they managed to have candidates in all constituencies across the country, meaning that this is more or less this is really a national election. So it is
bigger, because the polling centers under the NRM primaries are about 69,000. And the polling centers under the Independent Electoral Commission,
58?
About 38,000.
Oh, they're 38.
About 30,000. You can see the magnitude that the other one, even when the resources are not as much, actually the work is heavier and bigger.
But that explains the reason as why there should be no polling station which should have more voters than that one of the Electoral Commission.
That one can be verified. That's why I'm wondering why people haven't petitioned.
They are.
Because that one can be verified.
You told us you have 2,205.
Okay. We shall come back and then discuss the bad manners that, according to Honorable Katuntu, and look at what are the solutions to these bad manners. Let's take a short break and we will be right back. This is Behind the Headlines on UBC. We are live here.
The Uganda Water and Environment Week 2020 is back. Join sector stakeholders as we discuss the centrality of water and environment resources for inclusive growth, employment, wealth creation, and how sustainable development and management of these resources can help Uganda address current challenges caused by COVID-19, raising water levels, flooding, and job loss. The Water, Environment, and Climate Change online sessions run from 13th to 18th September 2020 on UBC TV, NBS TV, and via Zoom. No matter who you are, where you are, and what you have, do your part to sustainably manage and develop water and environment resources for improved household incomes and quality of life. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Water and Environment in proud partnership with WaterAid, GIZ Natures, IRC, FAO, and Water for People.
COVID-19 is a disease caused by the new coronavirus. Know the symptoms. They include fever, coughing, muscle pain, shortness of breath. What can you do? Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand rub. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth with a tissue or flexed elbow. Discard tissues into a closed bin and then wash your hands. Maintain a distance of at least 1 meter between yourself and someone who is ill. Seek medical help if you display symptoms. Wear a mask if you are coughing or sneezing, or if you are caring for someone who is sick. Dispose of your masks into a closed bin and then wash your hands. Check trusted sources regularly for accurate information. Remember, the best prevention is to keep yourself healthy and follow these safe steps.
We are back on air. This is Behind the Headlines, and we are discussing the implications of the NRM primaries that were held last week. In the studio, I have full board. The panelists, Honorable Margaret Muhanga, joining us all the way from Fort Portal by Zoom. We have in the studio Honorable Abdu Katuntu, together with Mr. Ramadan Gobi. We have guests, 3 of them. We have the Honorable Evelyn Anite, Minister for Investment and Privatization and MP for Koboko Municipality. We have Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, who is a Director for Communication at the NRM Secretariat. We have Honorable Paul Mwiru, who is Jinja Municipality East MP and is a member of the ANT, or the Alliance for National Transformation Party. And interesting discussions going on here. I'm going to, because of the time, I'm trying to see how we can optimally use our time. I'm going to allow Honorable Margaret Muhanga, Honorable Katuntu, and Mr. Gobi to ask one question to each of our guests. And then, once they start responding, we also bring in the questions or comments coming from you, the public, and then they will respond to them together. But I would request that if you are participating in the messaging and in asking a question, let it be on especially what you think should be the solution to what Honorable Katuntu has called bad manners, or what Margaret Muhanga has referred to as bad election. What is the solution to that bad election or bad manners, so that going into the main election 6 months, about 6 months or even less from now, we can have a better election, a better managed election than we had of the NRM. And also NRM can also, in other places where you have not had election, you need to also improve. So let me start with Honorable Katuntu and then Mr. Gobi. The guests, we have a culture here where, you know, without being warned, you are asked a question by our panelists here. So Honorable Katuntu, be the first to shoot for each of them.
Yes, I'll start with my young sister, the Honorable Evelyn Anite. Do you think the security forces, call it the Maje, had anything to do with the violence in these elections? Do you know Odongtho? Having seen this process go like they did, do you think the Jasibia process will be any better than this one? Do you know Paul Mwilu? What lessons do you learn, you as the opposition, from the challenges that have faced the NRM?
Okay, let's have 1 minute each to response, starting with Honorable Anite, in that order as the questions came.
Okay, do I think that the Maje or the security have anything to do with election violence? I'll use my case first and then I'll go to the other. I think they had something to do, in my case, in a positive way, by preventing the violence, because then there was no serious violence on the day of election, because they were visibly there, although they, in some cases, misinterpreted the chairman's message, for the case of my DPC, who did an excellent job to prevent violence, but maybe he did it because he didn't want violence, just allowed the people in opposition and said, for as long as you're Ugandan, anyone who has arrived here should go and vote. So I guess he did that to prevent the violence, but I thought they did an excellent job in Koboko to ensure that there is no violence. They protected the citizens. For that, I commend them. In other areas, for the case of my very good friend, maybe I should leave that. Okay, my very good friend, Honorable Rukutana, of course the Maje that was protecting him needed to do something better to resist the person you're guarding from overpowering you and grabbing your weapon, because that weapon is assigned to you. If the weapon is misused, actually before they ask the person who has misused the weapon, they ask you, the owner of the weapon, because it is registered in your name. So I thought that there they didn't do a good job. In some other places I had on TV everyone complaining about the Maje. When I say Maje, I mean the police and the army, whose core mandate is to protect the citizens, regardless of your political party, and to protect them against any violence. I thought they should have done a better job to protect the citizens so that lives are not lost. And they're supposed to do community policing. Probably if they did engage themselves more vigorously, like the ones that did in Koboko, probably we were not going to register any deaths and more violence that took place in other places.
Thank you so much, Honorable Anite. I hope you are satisfied. Honorable Katuntu.
He has to be satisfied.
Can I ask the question?
Honorable Dombo, go for your question from Honorable Katuntu.
Honorable Katuntu wants to find out, apart from repeating what I had already said, I'll refer to the assurances given by the President of Uganda when he visited the party headquarters and he addressed the nation about the conduct of primaries in Uganda. One, he said the issue of technology, which government has invested in a lot of money, was mismanaged by the officials in the Independent Electoral Commission, and he had to fire them. And he said modern technology is being procured to ensure that it cures the problem of multiple voting, because technology is there, it's available. Two, Justice Biabakama, unlike
Dr. Tango
Doi, appeared before the president and parliament and presented a budget, and was given a budget from the taxpayers' money. And with that budget, which he must have justified what he wanted to do. For us as a people, we shall be sitting and waiting, and the members of parliament should ask him for the assurances, so that if there are any lapses, then he could do, perhaps ask for supplementary. Finally, forewarned is forearmed. I think Justice Byabakama and the team in the Electoral Commission has witnessed what has happened in the country. And this should inform them that as we got the main elections, they need to prepare a little bit more. They know the hot spots. They know, this should inform them. And once they prepare so well, the technology is good, they have better facilitated team and highly qualified staff, then they should be able to deliver a better and more credible election.
Okay. Honorable Mwiro, go for your question.
Well, I think the first lesson we learn is that there is no credible election which can be organized without a credible register. Two, that falsification of results has been now rehearsed within NRM, and as the opposition, I think it is at this time that we need to crave for the biometric voting and biometric transmission of results to avoid the tampering or falsification of results. Then finally, I think the violence being rehearsed within the NRM, I think we need to call upon the religious leaders at this point. For a reason that if they don't, because I saw, for instance, an example of Ginger. I saw the Munira, the candidate who won in Kagoma. He was hit on the head and was bleeding profusely as if he was not a leader. Because if they have no shame in harming their own, so what will happen if they deal with that? I think this, at this point, we need to call upon the religious leaders and through the Interreligious Council to take center stage in this matter. If they don't, we see, because people are taking this electoral process be like the end in itself, we see people acting in the same measure, and which may not be good to our country. So, on our part as the opposition, we call upon the government to ensure that these are put in place. Otherwise, the country risks being plugged into violence. Okay. Because when people lose trust in the process, then they may have to resort to that.
Good. Mr. Gobi, go for your questions.
Thank you. Honorable Anite, you have carved out a very strong position in NRM as a very strong mobilizer. And one time you said you hold the gate and the key for that Koboko.
For West Nile, you said.
For West Nile generally. And looking back to this election, do you feel that perhaps there is something which you need to look into and establish why you lost this election? Could you have done certain things differently? And to Honorable Dombo, the NRM, every primaries loses a lot of members, powerful members of the party in these primaries, particularly the ministers. I think people think that the ministers have lost just now, but some of us who have been observing these elections, you have been, the attrition rate has been quite high. In 2010, I remember there were about 8 ministers who lost. What explains this, in your view as the people who are in charge of the party? Is the baggage of managing government causing this, or there could be other personal weaknesses of those candidates? And lastly, to Honorable Mwiru, NT, of course you have learned lessons, you have told us. When are you organizing your own primaries? And what do you really promise the country in terms of the expectations vis-a-vis the outcomes of the NRM primaries for you as ANT? Thank you.
Good. Let's start with Andra Banite.
Thank you, Mr. Ngobi, for that excellent question you've asked me. First, as a mobilizer that I see myself, and a mobilizer for the National Resistance Movement, I know that this primary election has left so many party members hurt and aggrieved. And what I quickly did, from the point of immediately practicing what the NRM stands for, which is peace and stability, after stabilizing the boat at my backyard, because knowing my character, I could have chosen to go for violence and fight. But even when I know that I was robbed of my victory with glaring evidence of non-party members voting, non-residents voting, I chose to practice what the party chairman taught me, which is peace. And when I stabilized my backyard, from yesterday and today, I've been speaking to the 85 party members who have lost election. And I will be having a meeting with them tomorrow, whether the term that I used to speak to them is those whose victory has been postponed unfairly or fairly should come and we sit, because we still are party members. Because what I realize is that opportunistic people like my brother Paul Miru, although not directly him, he's the Alliance, the People Power, or the NUP, they are out for recruitment. And rightly so, they are political parties, they have to recruit. They started calling us, and I was amazed when I saw them calling a number of us, maybe even calling myself.
You said strategic people.
No, you see, they are very opportunistic. They took advantage. They took advantage of the lack of preparedness and organization within NRM to make sure that they invade them and vote the weaker ones, so that they can get their candidates to come and defeat them in the next election. So they're looking for those weak souls. So for me, who believes in the party ideology, I position myself here to talk to all those who felt aggrieved during this election, and I'm talking to them to make sure that we mobilize for the party, and we mobilize for the party chairman, and also to listen to their points. Some of them have valid points. These 208 people who have filed petitions, I have had to reach to the NRM Electoral Commission and the NRM lawyers to speak to them that they have to fast track the hearing of their cases. And I was given the assurance by the NRM lawyers that they will stop listening in getting petitions by Friday, and then they will give 3 to 5 days for people to reply into those the complaints, and then within 21 days they'll be able to give a judgment whether they fairly lost or unfairly lost the elections, which I thought was an excellent thing, and that's the message we're going with. And yes, in West Nile, I have registered a big number of members of parliament who felt that they were unfairly cheated. And because they were unfairly cheated, even in spite of the fact that they were unfairly cheated, they do not want to run in the next election. So those we convert them into mobilizers. So I want to assure you that Mr. Ngobi, you asked me that, yes, I have the key. Yes, I do have the key to the gate of mobilization for NRM. And NRM, with all that you see, does not actually mean that NRM is a weak party. NRM is a strong party. We will win the coming elections. our party flag bearer who came and opposed President Yoweri Museveni will win the next general election, because we're going to mobilize very massively, and therefore the key is the robbers jumped through the fence. By the way, they didn't break the gate. They just jumped in over the fence. The gate is still stable. And we are going to make sure that we between now and the general election, we are going to put stronger burglar proofs so that the robbers do not jump the next time we are going for the election.
And you have left the robbers, after they jump through the fence, you have left them to occupy your house.
We are observing them. So what we do, because the robbers themselves actually took off, but they helped us to lift a weaker candidate and left the weaker candidate in our house. So what we do as a mass party, even if we get a weaker candidate, we make the candidate strong so that we can get the flag. Because for us, my business as an NRM person is to recruit. So, and then we mentor. That's why we take them to Chankwanzi to teach them the party ideology. So even when the robbers lifted a weaker candidate and threw inside the fence, what I'm going to do as a mobilizer is to speak to this weak person and say, yes, they threw you inside. Now that you've entered my fence, you have to learn the party ideology. And we will support him to make sure that convert him to be an NRM.
Good.
We're not here to donate any party member to Honorable Miru and to NPU.
And they are really recruiting. Honorable Chagulanyi has even called on your losers to, I hope not you one as one of them,
no.
that please come and join us.
We will not allow that.
Inviting. Honorable Dombo, go for your question in 1 minute.
I want to thank you, Mr. Odongtho.
Gobi.
And I mean Mr. Gobi for the question. The NRM primaries, every time, powerful people loses powerful people. Being powerful, first and foremost, in a democratic process is not an inoculation against losing. Once you go into a democratic process and there is competition, anything can come out. What is important is that the process must be free and fair and credible, so that the outcome is respected by everybody who has participated in it. So that even when you lose, you know that you have lost fairly. There could have been a few cases where some people could have had challenges because of what has been raised. But I want to tell you, to us in the NRM, democracy is core principle number 4. And in any democratic activity, and you go in for a competition, definitely there must be a winner and a loser. But there are many reasons why people lose. One of the reasons currently, if people are not very careful, is the demographic setup of the constituencies. When you look at the young people who have come up, there are very many. I want to tell you, in 1996 in my house, my wife and I were the only voters. Right now, everybody in my house, all my children, are voters. And at times, when you see them, the way they respond to the issues that I raise, they don't think that, at times they imagine that at 57, I'm a very old man. So, there is the demographic, there is a demographic dividend, which is an issue. Secondly, at times ministers, because they commit a lot of time to serving government and the issues of the nation, it may affect them on how they mobilize. They may be absent from their constituencies longer than they should have been. By the time they realize that they should be going to their constituencies, at times they have been undone by their own personal assistants, whom they keep sending in those constituencies.
They have jumped the fence.
Then finally, at times ministers, you see, it's a very big temptation. When you're a minister of roads, for instance, must you do all the good roads in your constituency? Or must you act national and do roads in Uganda? If you do roads in Uganda and you have some poor roads in your place, your opponent will hit you at that. You say, how can he be a minister for roads and we have such roads in our places? That's the nature of politics.
That sounds very familiar. I have heard that one of our ministers, Engineer Dujanga, has suffered a similar fate.
Because of energy?
Because of energy. People are blaming him in West Nile that he can never take the national grid to West Nile. For all the years he has been Minister of Energy, and he said, I'm a national leader, I am struggling for this, but the villagers would not hear of it.
Those are
occupational hazards.
Those are occupational hazards as a minister. They happen, but when you are in a democratic process, what do? Those are the rules of the game.
Okay, Honorable Miro, in 1 minute, respond to Gobi's question.
Thank you. The primaries are ongoing. We started with one of the flag bearer, where we issued out expression of interest to members. Primaries does not necessarily mean to contest. Where only one person expresses interest, that means that you will have held primaries. But also too, and most important, we have had instances where we have had more than one candidate. Because the NT is not an election party, which was formed to participate just in this election, we have had to sit down some of our members and show them that actually in alliance, to us leadership is a deployment. We acknowledge that politics is the fastest growing industry now in the country, and there are very many people coming to politics as a way of office seeking. So we have done a distinction between politics and office seeking, and many now actually we have convinced them to stay around, build a party, whereas we deploy others for office. What should be the surprising thing? Because we are called the Alliance for National Transformation. We have made it known even to those whom have to go through our primaries that it's important that we work together with other political players and political parties. You may not see us fielding candidates where we are very sure that we have a formidable opposition candidate just for the sake of fielding a candidate. And that should be expected of us, because confronting a violent political party like NRM, which has proved violent in the semblance of elections they have had. So you need a united front as a political party. So expect that we must work together. Expect political parties for ANT to work together with other political players.
Honorable Mwilo, you have a lot of grumbling from your left hand.
You see,
what did you do wrong?
When they were speaking, I was listening.
What did you do wrong?
I was answering the question on expectations. Thank you.
Honorable Margaret Muhanga, kindly ask your questions to the three guests. If you can do it in 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Charles. First of all, I would love to first say something about Honorable Anite, that I love your wheels. You are somebody whose spirit is never broken by the mean-spirited.
Thank you.
And I love that about you. I want to ask you if you think that you were targeted because of our involvement. You know that me and you and a few others were at the forefront of amending 1012B, and then we were a target of very many people. We were a target of some of our colleagues in Parliament who did not support. We became a target of the civil society organization and very many other forces. Do you think these people targeted you in this election and made you to fail? And then to Honorable Emmanuel Dombo from the NRM Secretariat, I want to ask you if you're going to have this election the way it was, or if you're going to prepare a good register which you will follow to the latter, other than stampeding people into an election at the last minute. And to Honorable Paul Mwiru, the Alliance for National Transformation, the newest party on board, Are you people going to have a presidential candidate? Who may it be? And are you going to field candidates on all elective seats in the country? Do you have that capacity? Or do you have the people to field in different elective seats? Thank you very much.
Okay, let's start with Honorable Bonite.
First of all, let me congratulate Honorable Margaret Muhanga that even when you had a star on your head for amending the Constitution, you weathered the storm, and you're one of those whom we can say, yes, we still have one of our warriors standing, and you and Honorable Peter were at the forefront, but yes, you were able to emerge successful. At least we are very happy. About your question to me.
But she's still going to have another force to reckon with.
Now that we are free, we would be there to support her.
Okay, good.
Yes, and make sure that...
Good assurance.
Yes. The question that you raised to me, do I think that they fought me? From the messages that they've sent on Twitter, on Facebook, the celebration on the social media and the print media for this robbery, act of robbery of my victory, is a clear demonstration that actually, yes, they did come to my constituency and fought me for the obvious reasons. First of all, for some of them say you're too loud, because yes, I am loud. I love to speak about what I believe in, and I speak about what I believe in with all the confidence and the authority that God gave me. But yes, I strongly think that they did rob me of my victory because of the actions, that the support for President Museveni and the amendment. Some of them say the sole candidate, some of them said whatever they mention, but that does not really, that is all diversionary. I can't accept to be diverted, because yes, I love President Museveni as a person. I respect and love the NRM party, and I believe in NRM party, the four core principles of NRM, which is nationalism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and democracy. I strongly believe in NRM, and for as long as the revolutionary leader or the founding father of the revolution is here, I will always support him, and even if I am victimized. Because it was not about Anite and failing to do service in Koboko. If it is the service, I performed above expectation. Everyone in my constituency knows that I fulfilled all the manifesto, that the NRM manifesto first of all, and also my personal manifesto. I fulfilled above expectation. So my performance was excellent, and that is why when I was robbed of my victory, it was not a robbery of Anita's victory, it was robbing the victory of the people of Koboko. So the loss really is for the people of Koboko. Clearly that is why they burst out into tears, and they were not celebrating. Even my opponent couldn't celebrate, because the robbers that he brought in the constituency left him as soon as they accomplished their mission. And one of the people who was FDC known and his campaign managers declared against him as soon as the election was done. And so, but what I can say is I am very excited that the people of Koboko still believe in President Museveni, and they have assured me that in spite of all that has happened, even when they blamed him for the letter that he wrote the last minute, they still believe in President Museveni, and they've assured me that they will vote for him. But again, just to conclude, not everyone who lost in this election was as a result of maybe electoral malpractice. Some of it is really hinged on lack of performance of the individual people. So that is something that we have to analyze constituency by constituency for us as a party, so that we will be able to ensure that the party does not lose in those constituencies.
Okay, Honorable Dombo, time is running out. Let's get going.
I want to thank you very much, Honorable Margaret Muhanga, and I want to assure the members of NRM that there is a lot that we can learn from the current electoral process which is continuing, But given the time that is remaining between now and the next elections, I cannot promise that by tomorrow we shall have a register. But Mr. Odongtho and Honorable Margaret, there is something I want the listeners to track with interest and carefully. Let them look at the violence in the elections of NRM where it happened. It did not happen at the level of the register. Most of the violence either happened because people were pulling for one another from the lines, like in Katakwi. People are not contesting the register, but people are pulling one person from the other because of the proximity of the lines. The second one is that the other violence happened in the tallying center. The elections were conducted successfully, ended, and the people walked back home. Then in the process of declaration of the results, what was written on the villages is not what arrived in the declaration centers. Therefore, the absence of the register in many places was not the reason for the cause of the violence. Then finally, I also want to tell you that many people who tell you ordinarily that there is no people power in their place without elections, many people are now turning up to say the lines were full of people power. Even when you cannot raise 20 people power in those places. It is because people had interfered with the electoral process and compromised the registers, and the people registered the people they wanted to vote for themselves. And this was a problem. And I like what Honorable Nita has said, that the decision of the DPC to allow everybody to vote prevented violence. We are talking now because we don't know what would have happened in a village where people are disenfranchised, when previously they had registered, they were supposed to vote, and now they have been denied. But I want to tell you that progressively we shall do much better. Where we didn't do the way we should have done, we wish to apologize to our members of NRM, and we call upon them that we'll have a bigger war ahead of us next year in the general elections. Let us reorganize. Let us forget some of the things that could have happened, like Honorable Nita has said. And I want to call upon the winners to celebrate with dignity, and those who lost to feel the loss graciously, so that at the end of the day, NRM and democracy becomes the winner, so that the next elections, we can win the ultimate war.
Good. Finally, Honorable Miru.
I think I want to say that General Monto was returned by the Alliance for National Transformation Electoral Commission as the candidate, because the only person who expressed interest to run for the presidency. We are alive to the need to work with the other players, and there are efforts going on now, headed by Honorable Dr. Paul Kaanga Semogerere, to ensure that as the opposition, we agree on a joint candidate. And of course, as we are known as Alliance for National Transformation, we shall abide by the outcome of that process. Of course, to us, the process is as important as the outcome. That's why we pay attention to the details in some of these things. But we know the aspirations of our people. As to whether we want to fill the candidates on every seat, that is our desire. And actually, I want to take this opportunity to invite my sister to Alliance for National Transformation.
To ally.
We want to build a party which works for everybody. And of course, in so doing, we shall also take into account strategic interests of the opposition, that we shall not just be fielding candidates for the sake of fielding them, so that we're extending the party, which will have an effect of us causing us to lose already secured territories. We are alive to that. Whether other parties cooperate with us in that regard or not, we don't act emotionally as Alliance for National Transformation. Even where we shall have candidates against us as members of the Alliance, and we realize that we have secured constituencies which we need to retain as Alliance, we are alive to the fact that we need to secure that constituency. So we shall field the candidates, But I want to take this opportunity to invite all those who are in the category of my sister, Honorable Anita, to join us. But also I want to make one point. I think that now to the public, to the viewers, yes, you have done a good job on those who amended our constitution. But you need to learn that those are merely agents. They need to deal with the principle now. As 2021 nears, I think the public needs to know that punishing the agents alone does not solve the problem. They must deal with the principle.
The principle being the president.
Yes, Mr. Museveni, who was the beneficiary. Because for you to punish Anita, yet you leave the beneficiary. Yes, it is a job well done. But I think it would be a better job if they are all shown the exit.
Yes, Dombo, you want to respond to that?
I wanted to let him know.
Yes.
Last time we were here, we were talking about the polls. And those were a prediction. Not knowing that very soon, we shall be going through a real election.
Okay.
The SIG elections for the youth, for the people with disability, and the elderly.
Okay.
This was a poll by Justice.
Actually, I was here and
you know how we have performed.
Actually, I was
and
here.
that should be indicative to him that even when it comes to the principle, we are going to do it even in a better way.
I think,
let him wait. He will say.
I think there is a very big problem. They don't give, they don't pay, they don't do. I think they don't do. When we sit and analyze, we analyze those elections.
When
I was here.
They are still continuing, by the way.
And they are the same way, the same problems.
Yes.
Just like
okay. We need to close. Yes.
Charles, I want to reject the invitation by Honorable Paul Miru, and I want to strongly advise all those who are unfairly, whose victory was unfairly postponed, do not listen to Paul Miru. I've rejected, and we will not go there. We're going to remain NRM.
Thank you so much. I must apologize to all our viewers, especially those who have participated by sending in their questions and comments. We are going to share it online on hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines, and of course on Twitter. That's on Twitter and on Facebook as well. We will be responding to some of your questions and issues that you raised. I went through a number of them, but there is one which summarizes all of them from Alfred, and he says we need to be honest to ourselves. The registers were not updated, and in some cases the registers got lost. And the way forward is for credible. The way forward for credible NRM primary elections in future is that the Secretariat should have a cleaned, updated voters register and printed, not written with pen, and that the registrars should be trained by the Secretariat on the election process. I think that's a very important, message from Topacho Alfred, and thanks so much. And many of you have said as much and equally responding to the same. I want to thank so much and appreciate Honorable Katuntu for returning to the show after being a wall. A wall stands for away without official leave. Thanks so much to Mr. Gobi, who holds fort whenever Honorable Katuntu is not around, and for the indomitable Margaret Muhanga on the line. Honorable Margaret Muhanga, now that you have finished the primary, please come back and rest in Kampala for some 1 week or two, and be live in the studio because your fans want to see you. Next week we should have you live in the studio, and we celebrate together. But thank you so much. And to the guests, I can't thank you more. Honorable Mwiru, always available for us. Honorable Dombo, very busy but still available. Honorable Anita traveled all the way from Koboko today to be available for this show. We thank you so much. Let me tell you one thing. I was mesmerized when Anita decided to still donate yesterday. She donated a new ambulance to her people, and I thought that was a mark of statesmanship, if you like. that even after a loss, you still go ahead. We have seen people who uproot, boreholes, who uproot this, who decide to grab back their vehicle when they have donated it to the people, and after the people have voted them out. I think it's something commendable, and we need to learn that from as a lesson. Thank you all very much. To my producers, Ivan, Kawa, and the team, Bills, William, Morris, and the entire team, I can't appreciate you enough. You make this show happen, and you give me enough content to reel off. And to the technical team that makes this show possible, thank you very much. And to Uganda at large, thank you very much. Let's not bleed. Let's be stronger, and let's ensure that we get rid of violence, especially in democratic processes when we are going through them. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
I'm leaving you.
What?
I'm leaving you. I'm getting out of this house. I'm getting out of this marriage.
Why?
First of all, you never include me in your plans. You are never there for me when I need you. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We are never seen together anywhere. Are you ashamed of me?
My people suffer for lack of knowledge, says the Lord God Almighty. Meaning, there are life circumstances in our relationships and marriage that we should have experienced differently, but we did not know what to do. We were ignorant and we paid for it. However, the Lord is in the business of consolidating every area of your love life so as to portray His glory before His soon return. Now, you may have heard your own share of misguided information on the how to handle marriage, but not anymore.
This is a marriage, in case you didn't know.
What is there for me to show ever since I married you?
I'm done being here. We pay the rent. We take care of the kids. What more do you want me to do?
Your parents at work. The kids don't even know who you are anymore.
Connect to the unshakable, reliable truth of the Word of God, shining the light on which path to take. The Marriage Anchor, Prosi Buyondo, presents you this truth every Sunday, 11 p.m. to midnight, right here on UBC TV.
What's wrong with the instruction? To lose your temper with them, man. Something other than kidnapping people. Maybe in America. Maybe in America.
Go ahead.
Only boss story. Cool?
No, it's not cool.
Cool.
No, it's not cool.
Tired?
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to try something new.
You really need to see this.
Launch operation. Let's go fishing.
bottom.
Hilarious.
Launch operation.
Let me drink one for the road. Let me drink one for the road.
Cause you only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know you love her when you let her go. Whoa, whoa.
No, I've never been someone shy until I seen your eyes. Still I had to try, yeah. Girl, every little thing I do it for you. In every little song I sing it for you.
To the nearby village.
Well, the mayor of the island has been talking on a local radio station on Wednesday morning, saying that thousands of migrants are now being guarded by police on the highway. That's to keep them in one position. One, because of these reports of attacks by locals, but also because of this issue with COVID-19. Now, last week, one resident at the camp tested positive for COVID-19. Subsequently, 35 registered cases were found at the camp. It isn't known what caused this fire, but the Greek authorities are looking into reports that this could have possibly been arson. Now, the reason for that is that there are local reports by the Greek media that those 35 who tested positive for COVID-19 had refused to isolate with their families, and that was causing tensions in a camp that is notorious for the problems we have seen over the last few years. But we know on Wednesday this camp looks like it has been largely destroyed, and the problem now, which will have to be dealt with immediately, is how to look after, protect and house the thousands of migrants who have been left without pretty much anything.
The British government's being accused of threatening peace in Northern Ireland and any hopes of reaching a trade deal with Europe. It's after Downing Street said that it would override parts of the Brexit deal struck with Brussels to ensure there wouldn't be problems when the transition period ends on the 31st of December. But the moves prompted a stern warning from the EU.
We fully expect the UK to honour the commitments that it negotiated and signed up to last year, especially with regard to citizens' rights in Northern Ireland. Any attempt by the UK to undermine the agreement would have serious consequences.
Against this hostile backdrop, an 8th round of EU Brexit talks with London has begun. Saskia Taylor's been assessing their potential for success.
How I long for the Brexit days. At least there was stability then, you know? A removals van parked permanently outside number 10. Brexit means Brexit, and delay after delay after delay. It was repetitive, but there was something reassuring in that. So comforting then, in these tumultuous times, one can turn to Brexit. And like the good friend that it is, it's still there.